let's see. Right now it's 9 o'clock, and let's go ahead get started. And we kind of started a new program. Let's see, back last year, fall fruit research updates and live Q&A, and that was well received. And we also did a few more programs during the winter month and early spring. They were well received via Zoom. So we figured this is a better way to do it, and because more people can potentially attend the program. They don't have to drive drive several hours to get to. I always joke with Ryan, metropolitan Piketon, which is quite far for a lot of folks. So before I get started, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Gary Gall, professor and also extension specialist, and mostly doing research and extension on small fruits. So blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, and grapes, and aronia. Let's see what else. Elderberries and hardy figs, and a few things like this. And I have been with OSU Extension since 1994, but I was a graduate student here before that. So a long time Buckeye. And let's see. Since Ryan is here, maybe you could say a couple words about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Ryan Slaughter. I'm the research assistant here at the OSU South Centers. My work anniversary was last month. I've been here for 8 years, so it's been a lot of fun. I take care of all of our research plots, so everything that we grow here, I maintain those plots and then collect data off of them. And whatever Gary asks me to do, I try to do it. So
this is Ryan got smarter now. Last time he said whatever I ask him to do, he will do. This time he said he would try to do. So yeah, I think next week he will probably say he will think about it. Okay, Brad, you want to say a couple words?
Yeah. Hey everybody, glad you could join us today. I am Gary's hype man, the one who sends out information on his events and things of that sort. So the more people we have here, the better I did my job. So, but anyway, I've worked at South Centers for probably about 3 or 4 years now. Been with OSU for a little bit longer than that. But I do a lot of editing and writing and also graphic design for the university. And I help out Gary do these types of events. So really glad everybody's here. Just a few things. We will be doing some drawings for some prizes here around every half hour. So we'll probably do about 4 giveaways. I'm going to use a random number generator, and I'm going to count down in the order you are displayed on my screen. And then if you're the winner, I will send you a direct message to get your information. And also, we will have a recording of today's event, and I'll be sending that out later on as well after we get it posted. We're getting ready to have a big celebration at South Centers, our 30-year celebration, and Sarah is feverishly working on some video content for that. So I'm not sure when exactly we'll get it posted, but we'll try to get that up as soon as possible. And the last thing is you'll see at the bottom of your screen, we do have a Q&A box, and I'm sure Gary and Ryan will go over this a little bit more, but feel free to use that to ask questions to Gary or Ryan instead of using the chat, because if you use the Q&A box, that way we can keep track of everything a lot easier to make sure that we've answered everybody's question. So yeah, please feel free to use that.
Okay, very good, Brad. So even though well, today we're going to focus on raspberries and the grapes, and I'll start out with raspberries. And I told Ryan both PowerPoint presentations, each one of them has about 180 some slides, and so I definitely would not go through all of them because with this program I can't, we kind of would like to maybe answer as many of your questions as possible. So we, people like me, we always like to show pictures whenever we can. So anyways, that's why I didn't want to cut them. And so just in case there's one picture out of my 180 that I would need, it turns out sometimes I might just need the title slide, and I can talk, use that slide to talk for hours and hours. But anyway, so even though we're going to focus on raspberries and the grapes, but if you have any questions about other crops in between, so you could do like what Brad said, and enter those questions in Q&A, and if Ryan gets stuck, and I will help, and sometimes I may not know either, so just kind of blind leading the blind. Okay, let's go ahead to get started with our raspberry portion, and hopefully Brad will remind me maybe at about 9:30ish and 9:35, and so we can do our first drawing.
I can also do that just from the chat as well if you don't want to be distracted from your presentation. I'll just kind of read the room, and I'll do whichever is more appropriate.
Oh, okay. So maybe you could just do the chat then. I'll just keep on going.
We don't want to stop your momentum. We don't want to stop your momentum.
Well, I get easily distracted, so the momentum may or may not mean that much. Can shift gears in a heartbeat, and that could be good and bad. We always talk about health benefit of raspberries, and there has been a very long tradition of raspberry research and extension at South Centers, and so actually back since the very first year of the South Center's opening, or Piketon Research and Extension Center, and Dr. Gary Stoner had a long history of research cooperation with our folks at Piketon, Dr. Richard Font, or Dick Font, and he did quite a bit of work. And we used to have acres and acres of raspberries, and both red and the black raspberries. So out of that research, and while they published a lot of papers, and Dr. Gary Stoner got promoted into many different positions, and I believe he is working in Wisconsin now. But anyway, so one thing that's one neat product that came out of this is more recent. So this is a black raspberry confection, and it's pretty neat. You have freeze-dried powder, black raspberry powder with chocolate in the middle. To me, that's probably the best combination ever. You get the health benefits from both, both chocolate and the black raspberry freeze-dried powder. And if you didn't want to mess with that, then you can always get the freeze-dried powder yourself, and or if you go like, okay, why mess with that? Then let's just eat the fresh fruits, or do the smoothies. But some people like jams and jellies, and Ryan and I, we kind of maybe appreciate the wine a little bit because of our serious research on grapes and other fruits and fruit-related products. So for one consumption, we always take it for the team. And as you can, when you go to grocery stores, and as you can imagine that Ohio's, even though black raspberries are native of Ohio, our production is not that huge in terms of the statewide acreage, but small acreage, but very mighty industry. When you look at it, there are probably about 400 acres or so, depending on who does the survey, and it probably varies from 370 to maybe 450, somewhere in that vicinity. And it's actually pretty hard to get an exact number. So I always kind of use a rough number, maybe about 400 acres. So but Driscoll's are still are the worldwide leader, the leader for berry production, and but there's there's a lot of room for us to kind of get get a little bigger piece of the pie. So in Ohio, there are many limiting factors, and if you think about it, probably the biggest one is poor soil drainage. And I remember when I was in when I was working in Southern Ohio, Clermont County, and before I went to Clermont County, Ohio, I was a graduate student at OERDC in Worcester, and we had Worcester silt loam. And then when I got a taste of the heavy clay in Clermont County, that's when I truly found out what poor soil drainage was. Because before that, I kind of thought it was crazy to buy topsoil, because we just assumed your soil in your garden or on your farm should be decent, but that was not the case in Clermont County. So poor soil drainage will lead to phytophthora root rot, and pretty much that would be the end of your raspberry production, and before you even get started. So the next limiting factor is fluctuating temperatures, and raspberries are very cold hardy. You kind of wonder why, since they are so cold hardy, why would they be damaged by fluctuating temperatures? Well, raspberries, because they're so super cold hardy, and they can get their winter dormancy requirements satisfied very easily. And then when the temperatures rise, and then plants get excited, and about as excited as they can be, if they're like humans. What they do is all these physiological processes started going, and they don't really have a switch to turn them off. And unlike us, we can get a T-shirt or we can get a winter coat, but they don't really have that switch. Once they get going, it's too late for them to switch back. That's why with red and the black raspberries, and we see quite a bit winter injuries, while we see quite a bit cold injuries in spring. And so when the florocanes are damaged, then you have no fruits. So that kind of hurts a lot. And then other things, too much rain, too many diseases. Boy, this year we got a very good taste of that. Lots of rain, lots of diseases, and so it's kind of hard to control these things. And then if that weren't enough, and then spotted wing Drosophila came along, and that kind of really hurt our fall raspberries. And we also have a few other insects too, but spotted lanternfly is not that big of a deal in raspberries. And the latest thing is army worms. Hopefully that's not going to get on the raspberries. And weeds they have always been an issue. Wildlife, good and bad and ugly. But just deer, rabbits, and all those things, and maybe possibly birds. And fortunately, the raspberries are not their number one thing, but they can still eat some. And then we hate to mention this, but labor shortage, and that's a bigger issue than we kind of would like to admit. But there might be others too. So anyways, these are all many limiting factors, and then folks like us, and we try to do what we can to help folks in Ohio. And then I just wanted to share a couple of pictures of raspberry farms in Ohio, and the biggest one time was the Stokes Berry Farm. I believe it's still in operation, and I think they may have had 35 acres or so, and maybe a total of 40 some acres, but they did have quite a bit strawberries too. And then the second largest raspberry farm is Champagne Berry Farm in Urbana or near Urbana, and 27 some acres. I'm also very glad that they put in some blackberries too, and they have always had gooseberries and the currants, and so that's kind of neat to see their diverse portfolio. Let's see, grow raspberries, and probably the first thing to do is to select a very well drained site. And there are in many parts of Ohio there are areas that have very good soil drainage, and so that's why, for example, the Champagne Berry Farm, their soil is very well drained. And their soil is quite a bit on the alkaline side, but it's very well drained. That's always a good start. Or for a homeowner, if you go like, okay, well, I always say, well, buy a home with well drained soil, but that's not always possible. So if you are stuck with a poorly drained soil, and so Craig had a question about a raspberry raised bed freezing thawing in Northern Ohio. Would it work? Actually, that should work very well because with the soil being a good insulator, and if you pile enough soil, and then the roots should remain right at the slightly below 32 or freezing temperature, and that actually will work very well. So with raised beds, and this is what Ryan built for us, and these are pressure treated wood, and he put the topsoil, while he about as good as it could be for Piketon area. It's actually not that great. So he did add about 30% of the compost in there, and it's just tremendous, because our soil in Piketon is very poorly drained. Okay, so we're having a pretty good discussion about the raised beds. So why don't you tell us kind of the dimension and what you did with the just give us a little spiel.
Okay. So I guess what I'm seeing is you got a picture up of the raised bed. So it was me.
All you.
So those are just a 4x6 treated pine timbers or landscape posts, and I got 12-foot long posts just because we wanted to do roughly a 50-foot long bed, and with the 12-foot post, I could get a 48-foot bed with as minimal cuts as possible, and they're 4-foot wide, and I stacked them 2 foot deep, so it gave us roughly 12 inches of depth that then I filled with native screened topsoil, and I amended that topsoil with some composted. It was compost, and I believe it was some old mushroom compost that I purchased locally, and amended those beds with it just to break up that native kind of clay soil that I put in the top of it. As Gary mentioned before, the biggest issue is drainage. So with those beds being raised up, and just the ability for them to drain out the bottom of the bed, they're open. I did put them over top of some old landscape fabric just to prevent some weeds that would try to grow up through even that 12 inches of soil that I put in on top of it. And then as you can see, there's still some grass that blew in and took root there. So even with the raised beds, it's always still a challenge with weeds. But it is a little bit easier because they're raised up a little bit, and it's a lot easier to pull. Some more construction of those beds. I did use 10-inch long landscape spikes. They're just giant nails is what they are. And I drilled a hole slightly smaller in diameter than the nails, approximately every 3 feet, I believe, if I remember correctly, and then drove those spikes down, and that's what keeps those timbers together. And then on the inside of the bed, I cut in half 6 feet long T-posts, and I drove what would then be a 3 foot long T-post. I drove that as close to the bed as possible on the inside of it, and then I fastened the timbers to that T-post with some pipe clamps and screws. And I used a poly-coated screw because those are treated timbers. The poly coating helps them, keeps them from corroding from that treatment that those timbers are treated with. Other than that, I think that's the most of the construction. Fairly easy to do. The ground was already level from a previous. We had some blackberries actually down these rows, and we took those out. So the ground was fairly level already, and I didn't really have to do any work leveling the ground. I just kind of set those timbers in place, and just the weight of them really settled everything in. As you can see, the raspberries look pretty good and healthy in those beds. So definitely an improvement over some of our field grown raspberries. And Gary mentioned Phytophthora root rot before. Even though we built raised beds out of soil with some of our field grown raspberries, still just super poor drainage here in Piketon. And we've lost a lot of raspberries because of
that. Let's see. So you already described the compost. That was mushroom compost.
Mushroom.
Yeah. What? Let's see. What soil pH do raspberries prefer? About 6.5. So about 6.5. So the next question is, any concerns of leaching of chemicals from the treated lumber? And that was a very that is a very common concern that most people would have about treated lumber. And I remember when I was in Claremont County Extension Office and Delaware County Extension Office, I actually did a little bit digging into it. It seems like these chemicals are permanently bond to the lumber. So unless you go there and kind of rub the lumber and then go ahead harvest raspberries, and there might be a chance, but very little. I would say not much of a concern unless you just kind of just rub the lumber and then harvest a few berries and eat them. And even with that, I'm not sure you would get anything. So I feel very safe. I feel really good. And, so with being a researcher and / extension guy, I feel 99.9% good about this. There is a very small chance. Okay, so okay, so we'll keep on going, and otherwise we'll just talk about raised beds for and this picture was from the internet, and just wanted to show people what the well maintained hedge looks like. And this is a great way to grow a living screen between yourself and your neighbors and stuff. Well, even friendly neighbors, I think this will still be nice, but not so great neighbors. And I would probably plant a much longer row myself. Well, anyways, so because of what I do at Piketon, Ryan and I, we mostly deal with commercial production, and home gardening is just kind of what we do a little bit to help our extension colleagues. So we're very pleased to announce that we received a grant from Ohio specialty crop block grant program, and we have had quite a bit success with that program over the years. And we had grants to work on blueberries, brambles, and superberries, and hardy figs, and well, did I mention aronia, blackberries, and all those things? So we kind of made a living off that grant program, and so we were able to help commercial growers. So after since 2011, and you would think that after so many years, kind of running out of good ideas, and then one day kind of a eureka moment came along, and I read a few articles and watched quite a few videos and journal articles, papers, presentations, and I came across this program or this production protocol. It's called long cane raspberry production, and it's a very popular thing in Europe. For example, Spain, where temperature is just too warm during the winter months for raspberries. So what they had to do was they would buy these raspberry plants that are about maybe raspberry plants with long canes. The length of the canes is about 5'10", 5'11", or 6 foot, and just however about, I would say 5'10", 5'11", because if you go to 6 foot with the roots, you may not be able to put them in a container for shipping. So this is so just long enough to fit into a shipping crate, and that's what those plants are. So raspberries that came with the long canes, and it's pretty neat. And so you can get around the lack of cool or cold temperatures in winter, and you can also get around our fluctuating temperatures in spring. So it's it's almost like a guaranteed the production fruiting from these plants. But the only problem is there weren't any. We didn't. We're as you can tell, we're very far from Spain, and we wouldn't have access to these kind of plants until this year. And I got really excited because one of the nursery growers in Massachusetts decided to grow this, and then they invested lots and lots of money in, and I believe they are producing hundreds of thousands. And then that's the good news. The bad news is that they were all purchased by one guy, one person, and we will. Because of our special connection with the nursery, we're going to get some from that nursery grower, and I'm also hoping that one of our nursery growers in Ohio can do this, so we can have this brand new. Well, it's not brand new; it's a new production approach. It will be brand new for Ohio. So as you can see, this is. This picture came from EU Plants, and it's just so neat. You have a landscape fabric on the bottom, and then you have these long cane raspberry plants in containers. So what you do is you put them on the trellis, and these are just like living walls and acres and acres and acres of red raspberries. And then, based on what I read, these. Okay, I'll show you some pictures. From a different company in Europe. What is this? Beacon Camp. in Netherlands, and so Netherlands, and they're just amazing with their what's called the substrate and container fruit production, or greenhouse and greenhouse production, high tunnel, and all that. Just they are definitely very advanced in terms of their production production techniques. Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. And you see these containers, and they're kind of well, they're maybe more like oval shaped and rectangular shaped. So you put two canes in these kind of production system, and they grow them like this. So when they are produced, and so these big, huge root system, and then when they are shipped, Ryan, this is, I did this for you too. So this is what the plants will look like: huge root mass with two canes, and the canes are. We're going to use Ryan to measure these canes because how tall are you again?
5'11".
Okay, 5'11". These canes are 5'11". So when we get these canes, if they are too short, we're going to call. If they are shorter than Ryan, we're going to call them.
Yeah.
And then this particular company, they produce strawberries and the raspberries, and so and then the company that produced this power plant, they used the tulamine, and they put in 9 acres in 2019, and then 14 acres in 2020. So you can so they have these well, the strawberry plants, and they they grow a lot of them, but we're more focused on raspberries. So this is what they look like. This is what they do in Canada. They have these mini umbrellas. So they have these these posts that are supporting these umbrellas. So we we'll see how well they will hold up against the wind that we have in Piketon. So we may have to find a different spot, and because it seems like Jesus always messes with us, or Mother Nature messes with us, and the plastic in our high tunnel gets blown away. And so we'll see. These umbrellas will keep them from the rain, and keep the diseases at bay. And so it's always good to have a nursery to do this, and I'm hoping that one of the nurseries in Ohio would jump into this production protocol. It's a very expensive proposition, but hopefully somebody will see this more as an opportunity to make money, versus people like me who thinks it's more of a gamble. But it's see, you have these you have cuttings and then the little plugs, and plug trays, and then the potting mix is the coir and the coconut coir and the peat. And you see these tiny little plants, and being put into containers. And what they do is they put in 2 plugs per pot, and 100% cocoa buffered, and I guess that's a pretty involved process for nursery growers, and they know exactly what that is. But it's a well, I guess you could do that at the source, and but anyways, so this is how they grow them, and make sure you have some kind of weed-free surface, and then you have all these bamboo sticks. And I found out that bamboo sticks are kind of well, you can buy a lot of them, but they're not cheap either. So it's very intensive, very labor intensive. So this is what they look like in the field, and just long wall, green wall of these plants. See how exciting! Just all those fruits kind of well, these are plants, and then they will be leaves will be after the leaves fall off, and then they would prune them and then put them in cold storage and getting them ready for shipping. So for commercial growers and so they would attach the canes to bamboos, and then you cut laterals, and then you have irrigation. So depending on what, as you can tell, this is French fertilization, based on EC, electrical conductivity, and then pretty neat operation. So you will hear about this and hear about this from us during the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years. See, this is how the plants are harvested, and then how they are shipped in crates like this. And we're excited. We're excited about doing this. And once they're shipped and for fruit production, you have these bamboo poles, and then just look at the happy picker, and kind of protected from rain, and very nice. And for fertilization, we're going to do our diligent research, and then we're going to purchase a few of these injectors, and then get them ready. And irrigation, I don't want to really talk too much about it, and so we'll let you know, and in a couple, next year, the year after, and then collecting leachate for fertilizer monitoring and all that. So baptism by fire, Ryan and I will have to learn really fast. Harvesting fruits, and so harvest them regularly to minimize spotted wing Drosophila damage, and then for food safety and all that, this is what they do. And for spotted wing Drosophila management, and then these fine meshed screen could be used for that, to keep spotted wing Drosophila out. And they can still apply insecticide, but I think Ryan, one time you attended a workshop on these kind of screens, and do you want to say a couple words about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this it was the Great Lakes Expo, and there was a speaker there that owned a farm in New York State, and she had an organic blueberry farm and applied for a SARE grant to do some side-by-side studies of number one, control, which was no treatment at all. They did use some organic pesticides, and then they used this exclusion netting, just as you can see in the picture here. They had some hoops over their blueberries, and this exclusion netting that they put on. And the exclusion netting worked so well for them that that after the grant was done, that they ended up just doing the exclusion netting over all their blueberries. And it worked not only for the spotted wing Drosophila, which is super tiny insect, if anybody, everybody knows a fruit fly, but then it kind of doubled for Japanese beetle, which can also be a pest for blueberries and raspberries in this respect. And then it also kept birds from damaging the fruit too. So kind of an all-around good thing for them, especially since they were an organic blueberry farm, trying to stay away from some of those pesticides to deal with the spotted wing Drosophila. And for raspberries, they are especially susceptible to spotted wing Drosophila because they're kind of a softer fruit, and especially some of those later ones, which you tend to see a higher concentration of spotted wing Drosophila late in the season. So that seemed to work for them, and it was a pretty nice little talk.
Okay, very good, Ryan. And this particular company, they also did economic analysis. I won't really bore you with all the numbers. And if somebody is getting more and more serious, and we would probably try to collect a little bit of that information. But Ryan and I were not really economists. It's I'm probably even worse than Ryan in terms of getting these kind of costs. But anyways, so it's well, it's all about all about marketing and control costs, and it could work very well, but again, so it's yield the density wise. And okay, so for those folks that are more like home gardeners and master gardeners and extension educators, maybe just a couple of words. And so there are many different kinds of raspberries in Ohio, and because they are grouped by color, you have red and black and yellow and the purple, and so there are quite a few good cultivars, and we have tried a few. I think the one in our raised beds, I'm not confident that it's a completely cold hardy in Ohio yet. It's Cascade Harvest, and that it's more of a West Coast variety for Oregon, Washington, California, maybe. So for eastern half of our half of the state, maybe we still need to stay with things like Nova, Heritage, Caroline, and Royalty, and those varieties. But getting good soil drainage would be a must. And then if you like black raspberries and Jewel and Bristol, those are still Jewel is still number one. Mac Black maybe a little bit. It's about the same. And then the newest variety, it's a Niwot. It's an everbearing variety. So if somebody wants to grow more of an everbearing and getting a fall harvest, so Niwot, Niwot. I found out that Niwot, they were kind of messing with us and like, hey, how do you spell Niwot, and how do you spell Washita and Natchez? And I found out that Niwot is the name of an Indian chief, either in Oklahoma or Colorado. That's where the breeder lives. Anyways, so made a lot of sense to him, but not much sense to anybody else. So variety selection, very, very important. And then another common thing that we always preach is it's never a good idea to plant red raspberries and the black raspberries side by side because of viral diseases. Viral diseases, and there are probably about 4 or 5 different types of viruses that are commonly found in Ohio. So do not plant red and black raspberries side by side. So for home gardeners, I always say, well, maybe plant one type in the front yard and one type in the backyard. If you have a lot of acreage, and plant them as far as you can. And viruses are transmitted by wind. So typically wind will only blow so far unless you have Hurricane Ida or Hurricane Ike. For those of you who remember Hurricane Ike from about 15 years ago. So keep them as far as possible. And then another thing is keep in mind is raspberries do not last forever. So if you can get maybe 11 to 15 years of longevity out of your raspberries, and that's pretty good, because eventually they will get different type of viruses from the native plant, our native brambles, and then the yields will go down, and then just plants are not not that productive. Okay, it's about 10 o'clock, and do we have any questions? Any more questions about raspberries? Or if you have questions about the blackberries, and maybe they are related, and I can, maybe Ryan and we can answer a couple as well. Okay, we looks like we hit it pretty good. And for Master Gardener volunteers, and so some of you may have seen canes, with raspberry cane blower and the redneck cane blower. So these are two common insects that we get. I remember I used to get in extension offices, and so redneck cane blower and raspberry cane blower. So the raspberry cane blower affects the tip of the canes, and so they girdle the canes, and then so you see the tip just kind of wilting, and then they potentially break off or die. So you see this little flagging, and then redneck cane blower, it will get into the stem more like down below. Down below you see a swelling. So those, for home gardeners, just prune them out. That would be a good way to do it. And you could growers could apply an insecticide, but that's always kind of tricky because insecticides will kill honeybees too. So the growers typically will make applications, and later in the evening, that's when honeybees are not they have gone back to the hive. So okay, so right now it's 10 o'clock, and so I will stop sharing, and then we'll switch gears and switch into grape production, unless folks have more questions. Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box. Any comments for the good of order, Ryan?
I just kind of been stuck on your comments about Niwot, the black raspberry, and we planted a few different varieties of black raspberries here a couple of years ago, and Niwot in particular, I've seen some pretty good production off of just the few canes that we have here. So it seems like it's particularly well suited for our soil and our area down here in Piketon. It's been kind of a nice variety. I just, I guess I just wanted to plug Niwot, I guess. Well,
I got stuck on looking for my PowerPoint. So
I'll go ahead and answer this. Go ahead, Gary, and I'll answer this one live. Excuse me. The comment from Rebecca is that I also see this happen commonly in blackberries. The canes look really good and start to fruit, and then the canes die. It's definitely possible that these are cane borers too, but a lot of times what we've seen here, anyways, with blackberries, thornless blackberries, we see this very common where the canes look good, they start to fruit, and then they die. And a lot of times this is from winter damage or winter injury. The thornless blackberries are very susceptible to winter injury. The cambium layer below the bark is very close to the bark and is easily damaged by winter temperatures. And we've seen that. We've had these really nice looking canes coming into the spring and going into the summer, and maybe sometimes they start to die early. Maybe they set fruit, they still look good, and then they die. Maybe they start to color up the fruit and then they die. It's just kind of hit or miss with the thornless blackberries. The best thing that we see with those is this rotatable cross arm trellis that we have, where you can actually lay the canes down on the ground in the winter time, and then in the spring, and cover those up with some floating row cover to help protect them from the winter temperatures. And that's probably the most effective way to guarantee a crop of blackberries off of them. Yeah, I see the comment about the blackberries unknown. There's a couple varieties that we recommend. Ouachita is a good variety. Osage is also another one. And I think for fresh eating, Triple Crown's probably one of the best. And I don't know, Gary might say something about that, but it's super sweet. It doesn't have great shelf life, but for home production, or just to, if you're sharing with people, Triple Crown is really nice. Good, nice sized fruit, very sweet. Natchez is another good variety. So, and that's thornless blackberries.
Yeah, those are very good comments, Ryan. Probably the first thing I would ask folks is where do they live? And blackberries are so tricky, and their winter hardiness is very questionable. And so for commercial production, when you use the rotatable cross-arm trellis, and then that's not really that. So the winter hardiness may not be that big of a deal. But for home gardeners, when you grow them outside without any kind of protection, and so variety selection becomes very important. So Chester Thornless would be supposedly is the most cold hardy variety, but it's still no match for polar vortexes. And so and then this past winter, even though it was so weird, somehow our blackberry plants still came through, and then they produce quite a bit of fruits. So like I always say it's better lucky than good. And still, based on all those nasty winter temperatures and fluctuating temperatures and freezes and this and that, we really weren't supposed to have a decent crop, but we did. Not sure what happened. Maybe we deserve one. And so Chester Thornless would be the I would say Southern Ohio, Northern Central, maybe Northern Ohio, unless you have the lake effect. And so if you were to plant them in your home landscape, I would say with all blackberry varieties, protect them in a very protected site in a corner. And even though we preach, being blackberries being full sun, and seems like they can tolerate a little bit shading. So having some kind of protection from a structure is always good. It's always good. So Ouachita Natchez, and those are Arkansas varieties, and they're really not truly cold hardy for Ohio. So Triple Crown, kind of in between Chester and Ouachita Natchez. And if you live in Southern Ohio, southern half of the state, maybe everbearing black raspberries, and they produce fruits on their new canes. So you will get new canes, so you can get a fall harvest. But in Northern Ohio, I'm not sure the growing season is long enough for everbearing. So the varieties are Prime Gem. Yeah, the quality is kind of not really that good. Maybe Primark 45 is better. it's very well suited for commercial production because it's good for shipping. And Primark Freedom is the latest and supposedly the greatest. So yeah, one of the better varieties. Okay, let's talk about grapes. Otherwise, we wouldn't have time. So with grapes, we are quite lucky to get funding for extension efforts and a little bit of research. And I guess we wouldn't even call that research. I call that more like a demonstration. And so we got funding from Ohio Grape Industries Committee. It's short for OGIC. The OGIC is short for Ohio Grape Industries Committee. And so every time when you buy a bottle of wine, and you're contributing a little bit, and toward that effort. And so there's an organization that's OGIC is the organization that has been set up for running running this particular program and for research and extension. So we received some money for extension, a little bit demonstration research, and we're just so blessed. And so this is why we have a pretty nice a couple of nice vineyards in Piketon, so we can take pictures and videos, and also for us to see what they look like, and then in between Ryan's breaks and stuff, and so he can snack on some of our grapes. Okay, Ryan, do you want to mention what kind of varieties that we have?
Sure, we've got our vineyard here in Piketon is just a little over a half an acre, and we've got a good mix of varieties of wine grapes. We have some that are quite old compared to how long I've been here, anyways. And those are some French American hybrids. We have four, three of which I would definitely recommend for at least Southern Ohio. Those three are Chamberson, Vidal, and Noiret. Chamberson and Noiret are both red varieties, and Vidal is a white variety. The fourth variety that I would not recommend is Hibernal or Hibernal, depending on who you talk to. It's a white variety. It has a really tight cluster, and it doesn't seem to matter how many fungicide sprays I put on in a season. It always ends up getting disease in it, and it just, by the time it's ripe, it's there's nothing really good there left on it. So Hibernal I would not recommend. We've got some vinifera varieties, Cabernet Franc and Regent, and those two are kind of tough to grow here in Ohio because they're a little bit more susceptible to cold temperatures. We established those two varieties underneath of a high tunnel, and then also outside of a high tunnel, just to do some observational research to see if a high tunnel would indeed help with the establishment of those varieties. And definitely just like I said, observational research. Outside, we planted those varieties and probably lost about 50% of the vines that we planted over the 3 or 4 years that they've been in. And then inside the tunnel, we've lost maybe 2 vines out of 50 that I think we planted inside the tunnel. So since then, the tunnels, Gary mentioned before that we tend to lose a lot of plastic here on high tunnels, and those are 2 that are particularly hard to keep plastic on. Last couple of years, they haven't had plastic on them, but the plants are still doing really well despite having some pretty nasty winters. Some other varieties that we have here, we have kind of the Frontenac series. which is Frontenac, Frontenac Gris, and Frontenac Blanc. Those are all doing pretty well here. The biggest thing with that, the Frontenac is a dark skin variety, and I think the skin's a little bit thinner on it, and the birds absolutely love it. So I just, from what I've observed here, if you're going to plant some Frontenac, it has to be protected with bird netting very early in the season. I'm talking probably the end of July. You got to get some bird netting on it. Otherwise, the birds just wreak havoc on it. And then we have La Crescent and Aramella. And I think that's about it for the, oh, and Marquette is the last variety that we have. So, and I think Gary will talk about all those a little bit more in detail.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. Anyways,
You get there.
well, Ryan knows how I am because I'm much older than he is, and always tease him, tease him about his much younger memory being not as good as my old memory. Yeah, I tend to remember a lot of weird things, and tend to, one thing that I'm pretty good at is remembering people's names and faces, and just remember really a lot of weird things, and just this is why I like what I do. Anyways, so Ryan did he did cover a lot of varieties, but a couple of them that I happen to remember because I worked on table grapes as a graduate student. So the variety that I worked on was Reliance seedless. So for home gardeners who want to grow just red seedless table grapes, that would be one of those. Even though it's still quite susceptible to diseases, but it's a very good variety coming out of Arkansas. And a few others, Jupiter, Marquis, and those are some of the table grapes that we planted for Ryan's lunch break and stuff. So, okay, just a few really beautiful pictures, and this is what professional photographers do for you. And I got these pictures from Ohio Grape Industries Committee, and they hired a professional photographer to go around vineyards in Ohio to take pictures, and they also hired these very highly attractive people and for pictures. So that's why I have gotten quite a few. So kind of doing a little bit commercial, almost like the chicken. So which one was it? Eat more chicken. And so in this case, drink more wine, or even better yet, drink more Ohio wine. Actually, just drink more wine will work for us. And because our total production in Ohio, if I remember correctly, our total wine consumption in Ohio, only about 6% of that was actually made in Ohio. So Ohioans drink a lot of wine. So we still have a whole lot more to go to meet that strong demand. So eat more chicken or drink more wine. It's I know some of the winos don't really need any encouragement. So anyways, so these are the first few pictures are actually from Javasi winery vineyard, I believe in Akron or Canton. But anyway, beautiful. This is what lots of money can do for you. And beautiful vineyard, beautiful winery. They also have I believe they have a spa and a hotel, resort, and just a neat, fantastic place to go. And I haven't been there yet myself, and I need to take one for the team. Maybe go there and visit them and see what the big big buzz is all about. And just a few more pictures. Actually, this picture I may have taken this myself. So because I enjoy photography, and this is a vineyard in Adams County, and you wouldn't know it until you actually, I'm not sure whether I can find it again, because I went there with Dave Skurlock, and seen a very secluded area in Adams County, but a beautiful site. And we also went around the different states, what different parts of the state, Ohio, and then just so many wonderful vineyards and great growers, and beautiful vineyards. And I definitely did not take this picture, because this looks like it was a picture taken with a drone. Very beautiful vineyard with a winery. Just imagine that it's such an important industry, and it helps our state tourism economy. And I think one time OGIC commissioned a study of an economic impact of our grape and wine industry. I believe the number was about 1.6 billion in economic impact, and so lots of jobs, and very big impact. And again, more really nice pictures in fall. And okay, speaking of nice pictures, well, just wanted to show you what the latest thing that we are doing, since this is a research update and live and Q&A. And so we you see a happy group of people, Ryan and I, and with Kent and Connie. And Connie is a grape grower, and Kent is a winemaker, and Connie is a retired principal, and Kent is he's still a psychologist, but they became interested in growing grapes, and then because of our enthusiasm, not only did they plant a few acres of grapes, and they also put in a winery, lots of money into a winery. And so Ryan mentioned about bird depredation, injuries, and bird feeding on eating lots of grapes. And I read quite a few papers and attended a few webinars, and during COVID last year, and found this particular gadget by Dr. Rebecca Brown of the University of Rhode Island, and it's called the Laser Scarecrow, and it's really neat. It's well, if you look at it, it's just more of a bucket, but with a laser beam in the middle. It's programmed to run very random patterns and to scare birds. And with these laser beams are designed to mimic the shadows of predatory birds. So the starlings and blackbirds, when they see these laser beams going around, and then they just felt like there are predatory birds behind in the vineyards, and so they stay away. And Dr. Rebecca Brown did quite a bit of research on sweet corns, and this thing worked quite well on sweet corn. Since Ryan put a lot of work into assembling this unit at South Centers, and then also coordinated with Kent, did you want to say a couple words about this new toy, new gadget?
Sure. like I mentioned before, especially with the varieties like Frontenac and the bird damage, in particular, the birds really seem to.
Oh, did the did your internet go haywire again? Looks like it.
Yeah,
Ryan
let's hope not.
yeah, looks like Ryan just got. Okay, well that's I think
Beth told me that they were going to be working on they're working on the connection there. It may go out intermittently all day
Oh.
at South Centers, so it could have happened again.
Oh, so this is another beauty of beauty of our working from home, multiple locations. Okay, okay. Well, this is nice. Well, the thing I would like Ryan to say was he actually worked with Kent. Since Kent is more of a psychologist, and Kent and Connie they have a very good friend, Jim, who is a retired engineer from Honda, and this was provided by Ohio Creep Industries OGIC, and Jim being an engineer, just a fantastic. Well, this is why we need lots of engineers. So what he does is he connected this to a battery, and then he got a solar panel, and there's also a relay in there, and there's also a timer. So everything is programmed. Everything is programmed, and so when to go on, when to shut off, and all that. So it was set up back in July sometime. So we're and I probably wouldn't call this serious research because it's not replicated and not randomized. But we're gonna take some observations and then go from there. And right now, let's see, we got 6 of them for for folks in Ohio. 1 in Piketon, 1 in Worcester, and 1 in Kingsville, and then 3 commercial. And also in 3 commercial vineyards. So this is just neat to show people. And this picture was taken with Ryan's camera on a timer. So he took like 15 of them, and I don't know if I selected the best one. Anyways, so keep on going. In Ohio, there are many challenges. We have cold temperatures and polar vortexes, and even worse yet, freezes and spring freezes. And this year was a pretty horrendous year for that too. Even though most vineyards escaped somehow escaped serious injuries, but the varieties such as Marquette, which broke buds very early. Most of those Minnesota varieties always break buds early. So the yield, some growers indicated that yields were reduced because of the freezes. The leaves and flower clusters were damaged. But seems like somehow our grape growers still managed a very good harvest this year. So cold temperatures will could potentially kill the buds and then also give us freezes. Ryan, I kind of just made up some things about what you were going to say. So cold temperatures, we'll just keep on going, and so this is kind of how we assessed winter injuries. And we use a razor blade to cut. And first cut, we examine the primary, and then second cut, secondary, and then you have the tertiary buds. And so this is how we evaluate them. So with all those things, crown gall and different things, and probably the freezes, and well, freezes may not work that well. So the cold hardy varieties will get us through cold winter temperatures. But since they're cold hardy, they can survive that, but they break buds early. So we don't really have perfect varieties yet, and then we'll get the spring frost. And I just kind of put this in there. I may have shown this picture, and there's this little chemical. It's called KDL, and some people swear by it. Others go like, okay, what kind of snake oil is this? So my feeling is everything is so dependent on many different factors, and so if it works for you, hallelujah. If it doesn't, I don't think we really know what's going on yet, because there are so many factors that are involved, all the way from winter temperatures, all the way from current temperatures to wind speed, to crop load and yield from the year before, and also where they are in terms of how far how far along the plant development stages are. So it's just kind of if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, it doesn't. So with tender varieties, and we this is what we would recommend. Kind of healing the graft union. That's always helpful. It's easier said than done, but growers do this quite a bit, and see, this is how they do it. And when they heal them, you have these big tall mound of soil around the base of the plant, the graft union, to protect them. So if you have, even when you have polar vortexes, and then the graft union will be protected, and then a portion of the variety will still be alive. And then if you lose the trunk and lose the top, you can still change something from the base of the trunk. And then when you do the healing, and then you have to do the unhealing, and it is a lot of work, but it's really a necessary evil. And so very, very helpful. Lots of work. So special equipment to do this. Maybe since Ryan's back, do you want to say a couple words about this, Ryan?
Yep. Hopefully I don't get kicked off again here.
Yeah, boy. So the internet went dead again?
Yeah, kind of embarrassing, but yep, our internet keeps kicking off for some reason. Yeah, these are great pictures here of the tool, the what you would call is the unhealing tool. What Gary mentioned is the healing up machine there usually is done in the fall to protect that graft union, because it's kind of the weak link with these grapes. And then in the spring, after your threat of all those extreme winter temperatures are over, you would come back in with a machine like this. It's either mounted on the belly of your tractor, or sometimes they're mounted on the back 3-point, and drive along and kind of kick that dirt away from them. And then a lot of times you can see in that top left picture that there's still a little bit of soil around them. It's important to make sure you remove all that soil away from the graft union, because then if you leave any soil, there's a chance that they'll send some roots out of the graft union here, and then it kind of defeats the purpose of having a grafted plant if you've got some roots coming off from your scion. But it can be kind of rough. Some of those tools, if you're not really good with them, they can get kind of rough on your vines. But it's kind of give or take. If you don't do it, you chance losing your vines from winter injury, but then there's also a chance that you damage the vines with these tools too. So it kind of takes some practice and some finesse to really work those machines. One machine that we have here in particular, it's called a Weed Badger, and it's a belly melted unit that we actually use for weed prevention. So it just kind of stirs up the ground under the vine and does a really great job. But you can use it in the same way as these units in removing soil around the plant as well. Kind of expensive, but if you're really getting in, big time with these vineyards, it's some necessary tools to have for your operation.
Okay, very good, Ryan. I was just checking the time. It's just going by really fast. And another way to do this is you can use straw, but that may or may not work that great. May not work that well. So, and then one more way is having multiple trunks. Even though vines don't really look that nice, when you have multiple trunks, sometimes that helps. But the problem is if one trunk dies, they all die, and so you can you can train more canes from the bottom. Hopefully that's above the graft union. Otherwise, you're just propagating a rootstock, and that's not always good. And then the older growers can do a bridge grafting, but that takes a lot of skill. That may or may not work. So, anyways, so multiple trunks might help them, but sometimes you never know. So we'll do a little bit, Cab Franc, and that's kind of our Ohio's new red, and it makes fantastic wine, but it's still not quite cold hardy enough. And Ryan mentioned that we have some inside our high tunnel, just with that little bit protection, they have done better. They are alive and well, so that's always good. And these numbers came from Dave Skurlock a few years ago, and I don't know what. There's a new pricing survey that Maria Smith and Dr. Maria Smith had collected, and so that's kind of used it as your discretion. And then Cabernet Sauvignon, kind of very similar, and it's always better to have other people grow them in Ohio, and so you buy them from these good growers because it's a lot of work, and it's very tough to grow, and you need a very highly protected site, or you need to be in a site where you are protected by Lake Erie. And Merlot, very small. If you are not close to the lake, I would say very small planting, just to see what happens. Or if you have a very the site in a very high elevation, so that may work. Well, polar vortex. When you have it, I don't think anything will work. Well, maybe high tunnel. So Regent, one time we felt really good, but in Northern Ohio seems like it worked quite well, and for Southern Ohio, it polar vortexes still hurt them really bad. But so far in our high tunnel, and Regent still works very well. You want to say a couple words, Ryan, about Regent?
Yeah, we like I mentioned, we do have Regent here at our vineyard here in Piketon, and it's been doing okay. Like I said, when we established Regent, actually for the third time, and I'll get to that, we decided to try it under high tunnel and then outside, and we actually kind of knew already how it would do outside of a tunnel. upon my arrival here at South Centers, Regent had just been planted either the summer that I came or the year prior. And then in 14, we had the polar vortex that wiped out pretty much 100% of the Regent plants that we had here. So we replanted, and then we had the polar vortex again in 15, and again it wiped them out again. So the third time we tried it, we planted some outside and then under the tunnel, and I believe we've only lost one inside the tunnel, whereas outside the tunnel, again, even though we haven't had quite as extreme winters as 14 and 15, but we've lost probably about 50% of the region outside the high tunnel. So it's kind of a tough variety to get established here and to keep it going, but we did see some success with them under the tunnel. They were protected the first 2 years, and then into the third year also that they were growing. So the tunnels definitely helped with Regent.
Yeah, out of all those varieties we have tested, and yeah, Champerson has been a very consistent producer for us, and so that's kind of neat. And well, in Ohio, when you get a crop, it's always a good start. It's always a good start, and some people can make a decent wine from Champerson. Other folks will use it maybe more like in a blend, and it's so that's probably for wine grapes where you don't have the lake protection. I would say Champerson might be our number one. And then we're feeling pretty good about Norway. It's a Cornell variety, so that's the good news, and folks have learned to make really good wine with Norway. And but one thing to keep in mind is Norway is very vigorous, so the vine spacing has to be 8 feet, if not wider. If you have 6 foot spacing, it would just be too vigorous for that. And then if you have a site with high organic matter, you may have to increase vine spacing even more. A lot of Frontenac, and Ryan mentioned Frontenac series. So you have Frontenac Gris, Frontenac Blanc, just straight Frontenac. There are Minnesota varieties, and then some people like Norton. Lots of small clusters, but they make. A few people like Norton wine, and very interesting. Okay, so small clusters, but really make interesting wine. And Vidal has been around since, has been tested in Ohio since 1970s. I remember as a graduate student working for Dr. Garth Cahoon in the 80s and 90s. Anyway, so if you have tasted a little bit ice wine, or some of you may have tasted a little bit too much, I really love ice wine. Really neat dessert wine, and just fantastic, fantastic products. Chaminade is another one that. Let's see, I believe it's another Cornell release, and it's a very good variety. We have quite a few. We planted quite a few of them. Do you want to say a couple words about Chaminade, Ryan?